everyone, I'm Sarah, recovered career coach, tech girly, and used book hoarder.
Hi, everyone. I'm Noelle. I'm a recovering overachiever, and I'm your inclusive workplace bestie.
Let's get right into it. We're starting episode 2, and on the paycheck side, let's talk about the current job market. So, Noelle, you live in the greater DC area, and so I'm sure you've seen firsthand some of the changes going on in this insane market. So, what are you seeing? Have you seen a job market like this before?
So I wasn't prepared to have my feelings hurt right away, but let's go ahead and get into it. It's horrible.
Right into
It's
it.
so bad. And not only am I in the DC area, but I'm in Northern Virginia. Virginia has the most amount of unemployment because we hold the bulk of the federal workers in the country. So it's been bad. But y'all, it's been bad for a couple of months here. I lost my job. I was working in DEI, which isn't heavily politicized at all. We don't have to worry about that. No, it's a nightmare, right? After that, I had a government contract. I had a 2-year government contract that ended up getting slashed because of the executive orders. So I haven't seen a market like this, especially for folks who are in specific roles that don't really know where their place is. So for me, because my background's in DEI, I have to find something else entirely. So I'm pivoting my entire career, and I have experience in other areas. But it's wild. The unemployment office, if you give them a call in the morning, you might hear from them in 2 days. That's how long the wait times are. It's just really outrageous. But we are seeing that there are the right people in the right places that are trying to make a difference and trying to make things easier, but it's not happening fast enough. So I'm staying hopeful for myself, but also for all of my neighbors here that are trying to figure out what's the next step for them. And if they haven't been laid off, I'm talking to a lot of people who have had their work be reduced to part-time. And how do you make sense of that when we have to work, especially if you love what you're doing? And the folks who work in government, they may not love the work that they do every day. Not everybody's in love with the day-to-day, but everyone is told when you work in a government, if you're a government employee, you have security. Feel like that's not now secure is tough. And as I talk to people who are federal workers, they don't know what tomorrow looks like. So there's so much anxiety. So if you've ever had that experience at the end of the day where your boss sends you a message and is like, hey, just want to talk to you for a second. What do you want? What do you really want? Right? And there's so much fear that's going on right now, and it sucks. I'm trying to stay hopeful, but I had to go through the trenches. I had to allow myself to feel all the feelings. I started a new houseplant addiction. Now
That's a healthy addiction, though.
It's not.
There's worse ones to have.
They look really good. They're thriving. It's great. So it's going okay. But the other thing that I've been doing is reading. Like, that's what brought me here. Is I used to be a big reader, and then I kind of stopped. Then when I got into adulthood, I was just reading nonfiction. So this has been an opportunity to read all the time. And now I'm reading 2 books a week, which I've never done really since elementary school. So it's cool to tap back into that. But all this, there's like this need for escapism. And as I talk to other people who have also lost their jobs, they're finding their avenues to find joy, to get a little bit of an escape as they work on tailoring the resume and doing all these things to try to get in to the right position.
Yeah. When people who are in positions that have very recently become politicized, not just the DEI folks, but do you find that there is this need to more broadly state on my resume what I did now? So I shouldn't even say I did that line of work anymore, so that I'm not isolated for potential roles?
Yeah, I think that in the beginning, people were seeing, okay, well, I lost my job. I'll look for something that's similar because there's still the right people that will be able to bring me in. So maybe I have to move from being a federal worker to working for a for-profit organization, and I can do the same thing. But if they work in an industry like DEI, they may find that those opportunities are shifting really quickly. So at first I would hear people say, okay, I'm going to be able to be in this new place and it's going to work out great. And I can use all the skills that I already have and the titles will be the same. And they're not seeing the opportunities the way that they thought that they'd be able to. And these are folks with plenty of degrees and they're just not being seen. So I am starting to see that people are backtracking a little bit. And I said I wasn't going to do it. I said I'm keeping my page very pro all all things DEI. I'm keeping it on my profile. But in the last couple of weeks, I did take it off because I was starting to see, I'm like, what is going on? I am somebody who is an asset to any team that I work on. I have a website. I have all these things. I have a huge network of about 80,000 people that I'm telling that I am looking for work, and I wasn't getting interviews. So I'm making some shifts and changing some language. So I am seeing that that's happening to others. But if they're working, like we saw that there's a lot of people that were laid off from the IRS, they're moving into roles that are focused on accounting. And like that's for them is a little bit more seamless. I don't feel like the country overall is looking at them in a negative light, whereas things like DEI is a lot more politicized, and some things that are going on with education are more politicized. So you don't know what's going on with the other companies. And then I think it's also understanding what other companies are looking for. So like I'm taking a look at those job boards and getting an idea what the company culture is like, and I can get an idea of if I'm going to be safe here or not. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I know it's a bummer, but I'm staying hopeful. There's always ebbs and flows when it comes to unemployment. This is and the negative reaction seems to be on all sides in the way that this is happening. So I'm hopeful that folks be able to get back to their previous positions, as many people as possible, and the ones who don't are able to move on to something that's even better, because some companies are seeing, ooh, well, those are actually skills that we can use over here too. So let me take that federal experience and see how we can plug it in here. So I feel like there is a space, and I'll see on Nextdoor people who will say our company is actually looking for folks who have federal experience. So if you're interested, so these are the roles that we're hiring for. So there are some roles out here that are being really advantageous over those skills.
About 5 years ago or so, we were in the midst of a recession, and we both worked for an organization where folks found themselves wanting to upskill and be ready so that when the economy is on an uptick, I have, the skills ready. And I wonder if there's going to be the same kind of, not shift, but I wonder what that next kind of growing sector is going to be. I wonder, obviously, I think that it's going to be AI, ChatGPT.
Yeah.
What are those skills that you can be kind of tapping into or growing, so that when things are kind of on the up again, you can walk right in and say like, oh, well, I've got the certification in XYZ. I don't know what that is, though.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot, like you said, that's AI. And I'm also seeing some career coaches out there say if you're seeing on job descriptions that they're looking for you to be proficient in such and such software, if you have a certification, because it feels like every single software platform has something that you can, they have some kind of education piece. Right now, I'm doing something for Asana because I love using Asana. I'm seeing that some organizations use Asana. So, like, what's one certification, especially because this one was free. So, let's go ahead and tack on the skills and be able to share those in a way that makes sense for the organizations that we want to work for. If you're listening to this and you're currently out of work, I would just really encourage y'all to spend some time to deal with your emotions. This is so hard. Job loss is one of the biggest stressors that you can experience. And I was recently taking a look at the stress test levels and even major changes at your work. So maybe you work at a company and they have layoffs that are happening. They rank that experience of you currently still working, but there's just changes happening at your job. They rank that as more stressful than the loss of a death of a personal friend. Right. So that is how incredibly stressful it can be. Right.
Yeah.
So it's so important that we give ourselves the space to deal with any emotions. So whether you've lost your job or you're dealing with survivor's guilt or you don't know what's going on, it's really, really heavy in our system. So whatever you need to do to get an outlet for that, do that. It's worth the time. I know that we need to hustle and figure out how we're going to get these bills paid. Absolutely. But if you are burning out, you're not going to be able to get the results that you want. So you have to make some space for your own healing and your own self.
I really like that.
That's some good advice.
You really, speaking truth there, you have so many emotions tied up into your job that it is life altering when something unexpected happens to it.
100%.
Not just from a financial perspective, but for example, when you talk about women returning to the workplace after taking a mommy sabbatical, that is so deeply personal when you've spent, a few years being employed by your children in a way, and trying to regain that a sense of I'm an adult. I can think critically. I can contribute to adult conversation. I could use the degree I went to college for. And so when you're thinking about taking those steps back to get into the workplace, that is such an emotional roller coaster. And on the other side of that, to be let go or to be untimely let go or a layoff or whatever from a position that you worked so hard to get to after you've returned to work. Like, oh, wow, I really loved wearing adult clothes again and getting to be around people and having adult lunches and being asked for my opinion and not just being with Daniel Tiger all day long, like just, one demographic, the mom returning to the workplace and all of those emotions that are tied up into what it's like to be in the workplace again. And that has nothing to do with the actual job day to day and the job responsibilities. So you're absolutely right. The emotional toll that goes into working.
It's so much. And I think that here in the United States, we have so much that's like our value is really tied into what we are able to produce. So
like our emotional contribution is tied into like our productivity in a way.
Absolutely. And in the DC area, there's a joke that before you ask somebody, how are you? You say, who do you work for? Because like, I want to know, like, what's your role? What do you do? How are you connected? That's
how classified are you in DC?
Exactly. What's that security clearance level? But I think that the hustle culture here is really loud, but I really think that it's an issue across the United States where your value is so tied to what you're able to produce. So if you are a stay-at-home mom, you have to be the best stay-at-home mom. You have to have everything.
You have to
perfect.
Also have a side business. You gotta have to have your kids dressed in the nicest outfit.
Crocheting for fun. No, get that on Etsy. Okay. We need to see that you're able to make something. And I mean, living in a capitalist society, this is just what's expected, but you're supposed to love what you do as much as possible. And you're also supposed to be able to make as much as humanly possible. And you have to be able to be working something on the side, and you're not supposed to complain about it. And it's so wild. When I was working on getting a visa to move to Portugal. Mm-hmm. And the process was so interesting because when I was working with the lawyer who was helping me with everything, she saw that I had 3 jobs because I had to show her all my financials. And she said, why would you do that? And I said, well, because I have to survive. And she goes, no, you don't have to. It doesn't make any sense. Like, how do you live your life? And I said, well, this is just what we have to do here. And it was just 2 totally different understandings of the way to best live your life. It was just, listen, you get done what you need to get done at work, but then you make so much time to live. And I feel like we have this very much live to work culture instead of work to live culture. It's cliche, but it's really true. And I think it's problematic. It wears us down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I visited France last month, and that was an observation that we had made. We were chatting with our tour guide, and they said that they work really hard to work as little as possible. And I thought that was like because I was just commenting on how, like, seriously, they take their lunch break. Like, they're out of the cafe, they're on the sidewalk, they're taking at least an hour, they're smoking their cig, they're having like the full cafe experience. And like,
that's the big dream for me. That's what I'd love to do. But in the meantime, how do I bring a little bit of that culture into my day-to-day? And I try to work at that all the time.
Yeah. Are you ready to talk about paperbacks?
Let's talk about paperbacks. Let's talk about them books.
All right. Well, speaking of ruthless environments, let's shift from the American job market to Under the Mountain, where at least the monsters in charge there are hot and they have wings.
They do.
Do you like that? Do you like that transition?
I do. It's smooth.
So we are going to talk ACOTAR. And if you are just now learning about ACOTAR, or if you're at the beginning of it, just spoiler alert, we've read the whole series at this point. So we are going to talk about all the books. So on Book Talk at All, you've seen it. And so you'll get some of our references and memes. But so some of my quick hot takes, like, and I'll preface by saying I'm not a romanticy person. I never have been. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those where everyone was posting that cover of that book. And I was like, okay, it must be pretty good. People post it all the time. So I read it and I was like, okay, I guess. I think it was like 3 out of 5 stars for me. But I went ahead and picked up the second one. And by the end of the second one, I was like,
I got you in. She ropes you in.
I might be in love a little bit with Rhys. Like, this might be a real problem.
Okay.
And then the third one, I was like, there's a little too much. We got to wrap up the war And then the fourth one, where it was like kind of just like a really tiny book, I think it's like Frost and Starlight. It was,
Yeah.
I call it the Downton Abbey Christmas special. It was like just
Mhm.
kind of like a really nice epilogue, like
Yeah.
little short book. And then the fifth one, which I think was like kind of like Nesta's story a bit. I like
Mm.
Nesta. I think she's a bitch, but I like her. Again, it was like a little too much war. And this is again me like I don't like romanticy. Like I'm just
Yeah.
like I'm kind of here for the relationships, I guess, and the drama.
She's a lover girl, okay?
I don't know
Yeah.
how not suitable for work this podcast is yet, but I'm here for the relationships is the way I'll say it.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
so I don't need like 19 pages describing like the topography of the battlefield terrain.
Facts.
And
Yeah.
so that's where I'm at. So that's my very high level hot takes. What do you
Okay.
think?
Okay. Similar but different. Okay. Because I, like I said earlier, I wanted to get reintroduced to reading, and because so many people were talking about ACOTAR, I'm like, let me go ahead and read this book.
Mm-hmm.
And I started reading it, and immediately I was like, this is a mistake. I'm not enjoying this. I don't understand why everyone tells me I have to read this. And then everybody who says, like, keep reading, read the first book. The first book is a nightmare. It's not good. But the second one is like your special little treat. And I
Yeah.
thought, listen, I just got laid off. I deserve my treat. Okay. I'm going to get
Right,
my
right.
treat today. So I read ACOTAR, and then the ending of that book, I said, okay, well, that got my attention. There's certain phrases that are used a lot in these books that absolutely like nails on a chalkboard. I never need to hear watery bowels ever. Why was that written 35 times? I don't know.
Do you know another one she uses a lot that I hate? And
What?
she uses it in the Crescent series a lot.
What?
Like calls to like.
I don't
Like
like
calls
that.
to like. I
It
don't like
means
it.
nothing to me. Do you know
Like
I read
calls to
another
like.
freaking book that said like goes to like two, and I don't, it was a completely different genre. Is this a common saying? And like I'm just now I don't like that at all. Not a fan.
Maid calls to maid. Like calls to like. Like calls to
Mm,
like. I
I
don't
didn't
like
really
it.
like it. But I did think in the first book, we have the characters that get together in the first book. I was actually kind of enjoying it. I was like, okay, like this is
Yeah,
good.
I described the first book to my husband as like Phantom of the Opera with the masks.
The masks were totally unnecessary. I didn't care when the masks were there or they weren't there.
My curse is after my curse is after wear this kick ass mask all the time.
All the time I have to look dope.
Oh
Oh,
man.
like I didn't care. Like
Emotional.
if they talked about like how uncomfortable it felt on the face, like maybe I'd get that, but it's just like I just look cool and mysterious all the
Like
time. I don't
my
know.
red hair, my foxy red hair. Lucian.
Okay, so that's my feeling. The first book. Second book, I hate Rhysand. Like I understand that there's a lot of love for this character. Maybe hate's a strong word. I dislike him.
That might be a real effing strong word.
It's a strong word. I greatly dislike him. I never forgave him for all the stuff that happened under the mountain. And again, for some of y'all, I'm sorry, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but he's having this woman dressed in like scantily clad outfits and dance for everyone and get really drunk. And there's a part where she's having such a hard time and she's weeping and he licks her face. And like that's supposed to be sensual to me. Like she's having a really hard time. She's being tortured and she's, oh my gosh, I just need some help. Like her arm is totally broken and mangled and he fixes it for her. She's sobbing and he's like, I'm gonna lick your face. That'll cheer you up. And she's like, it did distract me. It did. I'm glad. I'm glad that happened. What? So
I'm like, you don't understand. He needed to do that so that he let everyone else under the mountain know that like he wasn't trying to help her on the slide, but he really was. And you
no.
said okay, but he could have yelled at her and said she had cankles.
He could have. He could have just insulted her all the time. He could have been like, she looks stupid in that outfit. Like she could have said anything. He could have thrown tomatoes at her. He could have booed her whenever she came up for like her next thing. He didn't do any of that. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna make her dress in her
Dance
fashion,
on the fairy wine.
get in like these Fashion Nova clothes, and I want you to drop it low in front
The
of everybody.
descriptions of the dresses though sound nice sometimes. I'm like, that
Sometimes
sounds lovely.
sometimes they sound kind of cute. So Rhysand, I never forgave him for that, and I never will. I never will. So the
I
second
think
book is
he's a
about the two of them. And I mean, I just don't love a bad boy also. The bad boy, the heart of gold, it's just not my favorite trope. I just don't really love it. And I just didn't like he just doesn't have any substance for me. His whole vibe is just hot, right? Like I'm just hot and I have
okay.
purple
Okay,
eyes.
it's okay. First of all, his whole vibe, like his whole thing is like puts hands in pockets
Oh
and leans
yeah.
back. And like Sarah J. Maas, like in like all of his books, the male goes flex at length. That's not there. Like that's the aside. Puts hands in pockets, deep in pockets, and leans back. Okay, but like here's Reese's redeeming quality for me. Spoiler alert. He opens a library specifically for women to work at who have gone through abuse. So all of the librarians are like priestesses who have experienced traumatic abuse. And no one can enter this library without the librarian's permission. The only
Yeah.
person who can enter is who is it? It's a mayor, and it's I think it's more,
More.
and yeah, and the priestesses, and maybe Reese. Anyway, I just think that's like, and it's like also is like kind of like a tribute to his mom. Like that's a little redeeming, right?
I mean, he built a library on top of like all those monsters.
Okay, it was
Like
also a demon
downstairs,
under
there's like
the
monsters like right here
in
in
the
the same
basement.
building. And
There's
like
like
their
a
number
little
one
demon in the
objective is
basement.
not protecting the I would prefer a library that didn't have monsters. That's just me. Okay?
Okay, I totally forgot about the demon in the basement, but those priestesses didn't seem bothered.
I think that he got a deal. Like,
Oh, what if it was a total
like an
tax
Indian
write-off,
burial?
and
Like
the only reason he did it was like a free building. It was actually like just like a cage for this like slug thing in the basement, and he called it like a refuge for as like a tax write-off for like the night
no.
court.
No,
The
I
night
just
court
don't. I
write-off.
don't understand. And then even when we get to the fifth book, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. But with the fifth book, Nesta, who I hate, I do hate her, but I am happy for her, but I hate her.
She's
She's
troubled.
she's living in a building that's like condemned, but Rhys owns the land. Why does that building exist? They're like, oh God, we got to get her out of there. She shouldn't be living in this terrible apartment where everything is falling apart. Why does that building exist? He owns everything. Can't he just
Yeah.
build nicer things?
Oh yeah. Like that temporary apartment. She's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Yeah, she's like,
But
it's like really seedy, it's terrible, but like,
yeah, but Nesta feels like she doesn't deserve any better. She
and she
wants to live.
doesn't. She,
Well, she's doing
I
that's
don't know.
between. But
I don't
speaking
know.
of buildings that Reese owns, I kind of love the like castle. Like, do you remember the castle kind of was like
Yeah.
leaving her books and was like,
The
"Here's some
castle was the
smut
best
you
part
might
of the
enjoy."
book.
The
The
castle was
castle, the
like,
castle
I'm
was my
gonna
favorite part.
write for you and leave a book for you. I think you might enjoy this one.
100%. So I'll say the fifth book was my favorite of the series, even though I liked the FMC the least. I feel like her character development was excellent. I feel like they did a really good job with giving her something to do, but I just find her insufferable. And they never really explain why she's so horrible. So like, I know that.
Yeah, she was like a bitch when she was a human.
She was always a bitch. And so they go,
Yeah.
oh, but she became a bitch. When I was talking to a friend about it, oh, but she became a bitch when they became dirt poor. No, she was a bitch before that because Farrah's only experience with her sister is that my sister hates me and I don't know why. And it's never really explained. And she gives a very, very half-hearted apology to her sister. And Farrah's just like, I understand. She forgives people so easily, but she's also a little baby.
Like,
and actually,
she's like 18, 17, 19 in these
yeah,
books.
she's like 19 when it starts.
And Reese is like 1900 or something insane.
Right. And then like, I
Feels
understand that Rhysand wants to give her some autonomy, right? And like allow her to be a high court queen or whatever they call her. Like she's a lord.
Tamlin didn't. Tamlin didn't want her to have autonomy.
Tamlin's a mess. And I won't excuse him. I just liked him a little bit better. And marginally better. Marginally better. I just don't like Rhysand. And I wasn't rooting for things to work out with Tamlin. Backing up, let me actually go all the way back to Tamlin. Because I felt like all that strife could have been avoided if they just decided to have a conversation, but that just wouldn't happen. And that was partially his fault, but it was also her fault. And when she decided that she wanted to jet and she was going to be with this man, she could have sent a letter or anything. And she's like, no, I really don't feel like it. And
she did send a letter.
It was
she
like a 2-word letter. It was a very, that's true. She did write it. No,
I saw
she
this
learned how
hilarious
to
TikTok
read
meme that
because
was like, when your
Rhysand.
friend sends you a breakup letter.
She learned how to read because Rhysand made her write about how great he is every day. And like that was it there. Oh wow, that's so cool and romantic. And suddenly she can now like read like full volume books. All she wrote was his name and how great he is. There was no substantial writing happening. It's fine. It's whatever. It's just
One of the final tests under the mountain was a reading test.
and he's like, "Bitch, can you read?" Oh no.
And Lucian's looking at her like, "You, what do you mean you can't read? What do you mean? I was gonna help you." Like Lucian, but it's giving me thruple vibes. Who are the two people he's like living with down in like human
Oh yeah,
lands?
yeah, 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 yeah. I
Like
forgot
the
what
guy
their
who was
role
like
is, but
living
like,
in the
right,
ring on, and then the
right,
other, like the half queen, like they're
yeah, yeah,
giving me
yeah.
thruple vibes.
Yeah, I don't know. I
We might
feel
learn a
like
little bit more about them later.
I want to see what happens with Lucian. Like, I will probably keep
And
reading these
his
books.
mate is supposed to be Feyre's sister, but she's like having none of him,
She's
which I
like,
feel bad
absolutely not.
about.
She's like loudly rude to him, and that doesn't really
Mm-hmm.
make sense for her character, and it doesn't really make
Because
sense.
she's supposed to be super sweetie pie.
And she is sweet to everyone besides him. She's like, I don't owe him anything. It's like, which is fine. She doesn't, but she just has like kind of like a venom towards him as if he did anything besides say, hey, you're my mate, by the way. Just want to let you know if you want to
Which
get
was
to know me.
awkward. It was a little awkward.
But the other thing about the mates, so the men have a mate, but you don't, and the woman will say, you're my mate, but like they don't have that same feeling. Like nothing really transitions over to them. They just are either really in love with this person or they're not, but they don't get this transition that the men have when like they see you
Yeah.
and they go, oh my God, this person's my mate. I have to do whatever this person wants and I have to make them happy
Mm-hmm.
and all this. That doesn't really happen to women. They just have to accept that this guy says that you're his mate and you have to be like, oh, it's
Yeah.
cool.
And also, I feel like in the like with all the Sarah J. Maas books I've read now, I feel like the first like 40% of them felt like mates were like a legendary thing. Not everybody has them. Like it's kind of
Right,
rare to like know there's a mate. And now
right.
I feel like mates are handed out left and right.
Everybody's has a mate.
Yeah, I feel like mates are like, you want a mate? I have a mate. You can be a mate. We can all be mates now. Like I
I
feel like
don't think that she needed, yeah, like Nesta, I don't think that she needed to be a mate of Cassian. I thought that they could just be together. And I don't think that they had to,
Cassian.
Cassian, isn't that
Oh,
his name?
Nesta.
Nesta, yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't think that
Yeah,
they had
yeah.
to be mated. I think that they could have just been in love. I don't think that that was necessary at all. But this is my gripe with you and with everybody else who told me I had to read the fourth book. You were like, you just got to read it. You just got to get it. It's just like a Christmas special. If you are just starting getting to ACOTAR, you do not need to read that fourth book. It is completely unnecessary. Everything that happens in that book is repeated in the fifth book. It is a completely
Yeah.
unnecessary
If
thing.
you just read the prologue, you're caught up.
Yeah, it's just why I do feel like it had one of the best spicy scenes in any of the books with Farah and Rhysand have like they go to the cabin and then they have a really good old time.
Cabin.
But
Yeah.
I was like, there was like a part where I was like, ooh.
Okay,
So
okay, okay. But this is why you need to, because there is so much just brutality in the other books. I feel like you
yeah,
need to just get some fresh air and get the Downton Christmas special. That's why you
I
need it.
I
You
don't need
don't
it.
need it. You do not need it to like understand anything that
Yeah,
happens before and after, but you
no.
need it for just some brain
Right.
candy.
It doesn't push the plot forward at all. But
No.
I do like Christmas specials and I feel like it was supposed to be a Christmas special and for me it was just so boring. I was just waiting for anything interesting to happen and all we had was Nesta wants to be mean to everybody and we don't know why. And people saying that they felt bad for Nesta at the Christmas party. Why? They said, "Oh, come on, come and join us." She's like, "No, I'm going to sit in a corner and feel bad for myself."
Yeah, I will pay you to come to the Christmas party. I will pay you money to go spend at the
Yes.
bars if you come.
I guess. And then I'm
Wow.
gonna make this guy chasing after me feel bad. I wasn't into the fourth book at all. But
It was a quick read.
it is a quick read. It's an unnecessary read. Because everything costs. So if you're getting it from the library, go for it. But don't spend money.
I didn't think of it that way.
I will also say I read almost all the books with the graphic novel read or the graphic audio. That was the way to listen to that book. I love that. So they do such a good job. They have a full cast. And with the graphic audios, it's not just the folks talking. It'll, they'll say that instead of saying the door slammed, you'll
You'll
hear a
hear
door
it.
slam. And you'll hear somebody's, heels walking through. And I think that their whole logo or their slogan is, it's like a book movie in your mind or something like that. And it really is like a movie in your mind. I really enjoyed listening to those. But most of the books are in two of those graphic audios, so you have to buy both, and they get kind of expensive, but for me
Okay.
it was a great experience. But for the Frost one, I was like, that's one that I could have skipped, or maybe have put it on Libby and read it eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's totally fair. I didn't think of it that way. I read all of those books, but I did, and when we talk about the Crescent City in another episode, and
Yeah.
that's the first time I did the graphic audiobooks, and it is a completely different experience.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in those scenes.
For the first book, I listened to it with just the one narrator, and she did a really great job. And I said, "Oh, graphic audio, what's this?" That was tea. That was great. That was a really good time. I wouldn't buy the physical books. I know some people feel like they need to have trophies when they have a really good audiobook. I feel like I needed to have the experience of reading the whole ACOTAR series so that I could be in community with Book Talk, because it's just inescapable. So
it's a club. It's like a membership card, like an invisible membership card.
100%. I know that I will never read Fourth Wing. It's not going to happen. I can't with
Really?
I'm just, because it's just whenever something, and I read an excerpt of it, and she was described as like being like this like teeny tiny little, she's just so small, she's just a little girl. I don't like that. That's gross to me. If that person's then going to be in spicy relationships, like she just is described as looking so young and being so physically small, that gives me the ick. So I couldn't with
I
that.
respect it.
I did like in ACOTAR though, whenever the women, and they were described as thin sometimes, but it was never described as a good thing. So like whenever they lost weight, people, oh my gosh, are you okay? Is there something that you need?
Rhys would do that. Rhys was like, "You've lost weight.
Yeah.
We're going to fatten you up. Come to night court."
But so would other people that would see her. So like other people, like I don't want to give him all the credit because he wasn't the only one. But it's fair. He did say that. I did appreciate, and it was the same thing with Nesta. Nesta had lost a lot of weight, and they're like, "Oh, like let's make sure that you're eating your thing that you need to eat." I enjoyed that. But
I enjoy they fattened her up. They gave her a lot of food.
Well, I just like it when they're like, oh, thinness is so coveted. So to see it be like, it's okay that she's still beautiful even though she's thin, but she's too thin. I hope she's okay.
Right.
That,
yes.
I appreciated that. And I don't think that they're like, we want her to be thicker than a Snicker. Like that really wasn't the language that was happening. But I feel like there was this.
They missed an opportunity by not including that.
I feel like there was an opportunity to just like kind of show a different way of talking about weight, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
So I did like that.
That was good. I feel like
I love the house. I was interested in some of the courts. Some I just like don't even remember, like Day Court. What was that like? I don't know. As somebody who was like,
I feel like it was like a Grecian island feeling like, yeah.
I look at the fan art for
but like you would like Fourth Wing because they go to like different courts.
I can't with a teeny tiny little bitty baby. I cannot.
But she muscles up.
No, she's just a little tiny thing. I cannot.
Only for a chapter.
She has to get
because
like
she
taller
won't survive
and get
unless
bigger
she
bones.
muscles up. She will die if she doesn't muscle up. She muscles up.
No, what I saw described of her is like she's just as little as a thimble.
No. It's not like that at all. She has to muscle up or she will die and she won't make it into the building of the castle. Like that's the whole first chapter. She will die if she doesn't make it past like this big wall.
I'm still probably giving it a no, but I appreciate the extra comment.
No, like I feel like I'm verbally trying to convince you because the way you described it makes me feel gross that I read it. So, like, I need to convince myself that I'm not gross.
The summer court, I was like, there just isn't really much diversity, and there never really, well, I shouldn't say there never really is, but fantasy is missing a lot of diversity. So when I got to summer court, I was like, oh, this is Wakanda. Yay. So I wanted to get a little bit more of that. And I was like, of course they have blue eyes. So it's like, we got to give them like a little bit of Eurocentric quality. But beyond that, I was like, okay, like that's nice.
Welcome to Wakanda.
Welcome to Wakanda. Here we go. The night court though seemed like a cool place to be. And
Yeah.
first, summer court, that's Tamlin, right? Or is he spring court?
He's spring.
That sounded nice at first, and then it just sounded really boring. So like I could get why she wanted out. But initially with reading the book, I was having such a hard time with, okay, you're poor and this guy is going to save you. And he said, you killed somebody I really care about, and I am going to give you the life of your dreams. How about that for a punishment? And she's like, yeah, I hate it. I was like, what is going on? So it was so hard for me to understand that when I'm like, oh my gosh, you just
well, and then also when you learn at the end, like people would line up and volunteer as tribute to become an animal and go into the human side and then be like test to like see if you would kill them or not. To then be like, you know what I mean? It was just like I wasn't quite following the line, and that's part of the storyline that made it at like a 3 out of 5 for me. Like, okay.
Right?
Like I love that. I love Reese's inner circle of people. I think they're like some of my cronies. I love those people.
I like Asian. I like Cassian. I like more. I dig them. I don't care about the woman who like is like the oldest one, and she's like name? She's also teeny tiny.
Amren?
So maybe. Amren's not really for me, but I don't mind a strong woman character, and I don't mind if she's a little bit of a bitch, but I don't like it when somebody's a bitch and I don't know why. So I want to understand why. But she's also so
like not even like, I feel like she's not even like maybe woman. Like I feel like she's like a being in like a body. Like it's like she could be in any type of body. It's just like she unzipped a body and like put her being of whatever she is in it.
Yeah. I don't know what she is. Really getting that. And they also never really explained the argument that she and Nesta had in the 5th book. Like they had some kind of a falling out, and it's never explained other than like it's very important that Nesta apologizes. And it was such a big, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a major plot point, but it was brought up a lot. So you're like, okay, so what happened? Yeah, and she doesn't tell you. And she talks so, like Sarah J. Maas talks so much. She shares so much information. It's like, why would you not give me that? And I know I said like I was pretty much done, but I guess I'm not. The 3rd book I didn't like because it was like, now I'm gonna get revenge on Tamlin, and a little bit of that I was like, valid, we love that. But then I'm like, oh, you're gonna destroy his life and his court? That's a lot. Like those are innocent people.
There were parts of that where I did start to feel a little bad for Tamlin when it was like, and we're gonna turn his own court against him to the point where he can't like feed himself. Like he can feed himself, but he becomes like kind of feral and like his kitchen. Do you remember that part where he like comes to kind of like even like check on him? Yeah, he kind of needs you to like go be like a lord and like represent lords at this lord table later, and he's like on the floor like with an uncooked deer, like I don't know how to cook, my cooks are gone. And Rhys is like, this is how you put butter in a skillet. And it was a sad moment. I
didn't really like what was going on in the spring court overall. I was fine about her dipping. It made sense. But I was like, I don't know that we had to make his whole court vulnerable to the king or whatever. It just seemed like she ruined everything, and people died because she's like, it's time for me to get mine, in like a Disney kid kind of way. And I was like, girl, like,
yeah, I think you're good in Night Court. Like you don't have to like get your magnifying glass on this anthill. Like it's okay. No, like just move on.
She's out here like getting her back blown out, living the life of her dreams, having all the autonomy that she needs.
With wings. Really, she's got like Illyrian wings for fun now. Like wings,
just doing what you want to do. You get to rule things, even
take
though
your selfie and go. Like nobody.
Your husband is years, like centuries older than you, but is giving you the same amount of rights that he has, and you're like running things over people that have been alive like 500 years, and like you're their boss, and they're like, yeah, this is fine. You were just born yesterday, but now you're the boss.
Go take go take your little finger paint set and go just like chill out and like
But the thing, Farrah, I liked her the best in the 1st book, and then after that, I didn't dislike her, but I didn't really care for her.
Yeah.
But what drove me nuts, we get to the end of the series, at least as far as we've gotten so far, her and Rhysand making the decision that if you die, I die. If you die, I die. Why would you make that decision if you want to have kids? And even if they didn't know that they were going to have kids, like, why would you make that choice? So everyone.
And I loved Amren when she like turned her head when she was like,
you fool.
We'll talk about this later. We'll talk about the dumbassery that was this decision later.
That was so
Like not very like democratic of them. Like, you know, because like I feel like if they're like their second, third, fourth, fifth in command, they didn't
Right.
talk about that with them. And I feel like they really should have.
They should have talked about it. It didn't really make any sense. And even to make that decision, it would make sense coming from Feyre because she was just born. She's a little baby.
Yeah.
Rhysand
she's like 8 minutes old.
Right. So like Rhysand has been alive for a long time and he knows how important he is to everything that's running. Like he doesn't have systems in place to do this. So we're like, yeah, sorry.
You jump, I jump, right, Jack? You jump, I jump.
This like Romeo and Juliet thing does not work when you're like 500 years old. It makes sense when you're 14 and dumb, but like
even then
y'all are grown. I don't understand. And not thinking that through with the pregnancy too is just all right.
Yeah.
All right, y'all making some choices that are
questionable.
Okay. But yeah, ACOTAR, I'm glad I read it. I felt like I needed to be able to have it to connect to what's going on Book Talk. The memes are probably the best out of any series that I've seen.
100%. Like you almost need to for the memes.
And there's some characters that I just really, side characters that I really love, like the Sorrel or what, like the
Surreal.
Surreal. I love that thing. It was just giving her advice. It seemed like it was very like high vibes.
Stick with the dark.
Gave you some advice, and he'd want to get out of there, but he's like, we just like stick around and give you a little bit more advice. And he didn't have to do that, but he's like, girly pop, let me just tell you about a thing or two. And he's so terrifying, but he's just like chilling with her. And I loved him. I was like, Surreal, you ghoul. I love you. I really do.
Ghoul. Oh, you ghoul. What's cool?
I love you.
Oh my gosh, that was hilarious. I'm glad we got to talk about that.
That was important. But I feel like that's everything. I think I got it all out now. We're good.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad. That was the series that really brought us together. And I would just, to toot my own horn, I feel like I deserve an Academy Award for my performance in our text conversation, because in the first book, you text me something along the lines of, she's at some like fairy festival in the spring court and she ran into some guy dressed in black. I don't know, Rhys something. I don't know. He might be important. And I was like, oh yeah, I think he comes back later in the book somewhere. And then
just
like, later in the
actress.
book, yeah,
an actress.
And I was like, I deserve an Oscar because for not just exploding memes on you. I was like, oh yeah, I think he comes back later. I don't know, maybe.
These books are so long, and I'm sending Sarah texts like every 100 pages. I was like, oh my gosh, you won't believe what happens. And
when your book bestie is like reading a book, you know that they'll be excited about. You are like, you don't want to give them a spoiler, but you're also like, where are you at? Where are you at? Where are you at? Where are you at? Because you're just like you're so excited for them.
Yes,
that's how it was. But when there's like 5 books of it, it's like a whole like 2 weeks of just like, and then so we've done Crescent City. So I've read all of Crescent City. You haven't. You're waiting on the second half of book 3.
That's what I'm gonna read next. I have mostly through this other book, different genre, and then I'm gonna read the second half, and we'll circle back.
Yeah. So I've read all of that. So I'll be like, it's an emotional journey. And it's also like you lift your head up and you're like, oh yeah, what is going on in my actual life? My 5-year-old is holding a squirrel outside and my tween is like in my makeup in our bathroom. But, you know, escapism.
Listen, just trying to, eventually I'll go and touch grass. But I think that she does a really good job of building world and taking you there. And the fans do such a good job with not just like the memes, but like the AI is really good. Where I'm like,
I'm here for that. It's like journey through Night Court with me. I'm like, okay,
I know.
Let's go.
And
or like wake up
music.
in Nesta's castle in the morning, and I'm like, yes. And it's like, I love it.
It's like the POV. I'm like, this is really good. And then with the graphic audio, it's like it became like a whole immersive experience. So I'm like, this is all of it. I was eating it up. It was a really good experience. But the AI for some of those dudes, I was like, oh, is this what y'all see in your head? Because I wasn't putting those pieces together until you put it on the internet, and now I am eating it up because Cassian sounded like.
Isn't it funny, like what people see when you see what is like? This is how I pictured it in my head. I was like, that is not what I saw, but Damn. We do not have the same imagination.
Not at all. I wouldn't be able to really see the courts. My brain doesn't really work that way if it wasn't for the art that was done, or even like what's going on in some of the wars. It just was so much detail. I couldn't
skip paragraphs.
I
In some of
couldn't
the war
see
scenes.
it. Yeah.
Like in Flip, is he dead? Is he dead? Nope, still going. And
It's
dead.
so
Okay,
much
and
description.
dead. Yeah,
right. And her books, in my opinion, don't get great until you're in that last 150 pages. You can get some good little slices, like at the day court where they're all fighting.
Are unmatched because
They're very, very
I
good.
want to end her books at 80% through. 80%. I'm like, I'm done. I am done, ma'am. I have shit to do. I have invested 4 days of my life into this, and it's gone nowhere, to be quite frank.
It's gone nowhere.
87% of the way through, I'm basically calling you, like, Noelle, Noelle, did you know? Did you know? And you're like, yeah, I knew. I needed you to hang in there because I knew that was happening. And I'm like,
know.
Okay, on to book 4. But didn't know. I was ready to give up. Was a big problem.
Yeah, I feel like that's wrong. Like, have me that invested, maybe even midway through the book, but all the way into the end, not having it be interesting enough to want to hold on. But I just knew because of the community, if I hang on, it's going to get really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know now, because I made a mistake in the first book, you decide that you're going to read it, great. Don't get back and search it unless you want to have spoilers, because the spoilers are huge with these books.
They're pretty big. That's a wrap on episode 2 of Paperbacks and Paychecks. If you're still with us, congrats. You survived corporate jargon and the cauldron. If you like what you heard, go ahead and follow the show and maybe even tell a friend who reads and leads. We'll be back soon with more books, careers, and chaos. And remember, your job should not be the villain in your story.
Hi, everyone.